Today, let's begin with round 54. The title of today's lesson is the real aspect of the inner world of the earth. When the earth was made for the first time, the center of it became vacant due to the centrifugal force, and in the surface of the inner world of the earth, there are lots of vacant caves. Between the world on the surface of the earth and the inner world of it, there exists the three-striped lava, and at the north and south poles, the magnetic lines are combined with the light coming from the inner world of the earth, which makes the aurora. The people of the inner world of the earth are the fifth-dimensional ones who live in the houses made of crystal and jewel. The capital city of the inner world of the earth is called Shambala, and some persons visited the inner world of the earth already. Well, the next sentences are the erased parts of the theme 2012 Dimensional Ascension, which are thought to be important. I mean, there was this site in the internet, but I erased it, and so it is not in the internet at the present time. The first question is as following. Will you tell me about the world in the inner world of the earth? And the answer is as following. Yes, I will. The information concerning this world is enormous, and so I'd like to say briefly today. This world in the inner part of the earth was explained in detail in Mr. Bakchano's book, UFO Hanbando Project, namely the UFO project in the Korean Peninsula. As I was quite interested in UFO, I read his book naturally. However, I regarded this world, namely the inner world of the earth, as a legend or a mythology, and I never thought of it to really exist. Probably the reason was that I was trapped in the fixed idea due to the modern physics or the earth science. In other words, according to the present theory of the earth science, the deeper we go down to the earth, the hotter it becomes. And in the center of the earth, there exists the iron material. From the iron, the magnetic lines come out of the north and south poles of the earth, and therefore we can see the phenomenon of the aurora. When we watch the explosion of the volcanoes, it is sure that inner part of the earth is full of the hot material. This sort of theory is that which we learned at the class of the earth science when we were young. However, if we have the journey of the different scientific consideration, we can conclude that this opinion is based upon the unscientific theory, which is quite different from the reality. In other words, when we put water in a bucket fully and whirl the whole water repeatedly with a very high speed, the center of it becomes vacant with a hole due to the centrifugal force. Now let's consider the first stage of the formulation of our solar system. The solar system was first made from a great amount of the clouds among the stars, known as the nebula, as we know well. The nebula is made up of gas and dust, and in the case of our galaxy, it exists among the stars. It is classified into several types in accordance with the constituent material and shape. In the former times, scientists could not distinguish between the nebula and the galaxies which exist far out of our galaxy, but today they distinguish them distinctly. The nebula can be watched not only in our galaxy, but other galaxies. For example, the Horsehead Nebula or the Rose Nebula are well known to the general people today. Well, these sentences are from the encyclopedia. When the nebula gets together in one place, the weight gets greater and greater, and at last it cannot endure its own weight, hence the beginning of the rotation. As the rotation gets its more and more speed, the heavy pieces of material get together in the center of the rotation as its weight gets greater and greater, and at last the sun is made. In addition, several planets like the Earth or Mars are made around the sun. Let's consider the formulation process of the Earth. As we have already performed the thought experiment of the rotation of the bucket, when the Earth was made originally, it began to rotate, and as a result, due to the centrifugal force, the center of the Earth becomes vacuum. That is, a sort of great space is made in the center of the Earth. Here, the centrifugal force is the one which is made when a thing rotates fast. And in this case, the centrifugal force is the one which functions outwardly. This force makes it possible for us to rotate a bucket full of water without spilling outside. Therefore, we can think that the formulation of the space within the Earth is not an imaginary thought, but it is a result of the scientific process. At this time, in the center of the vacuum space, all the directions of the surface have the drawing force, which is just the same in all of the directions. Then, in the same way, just as the sun was made at the beginning time of the solar system, a small sun was made in the center of the space of its world, just the same shape of the real sun in our solar system. Of course, the little sun gives up a light in the same way. From other point of view, we can think that the people living there made a man-made sun, and they put in the center of space there. We can think that it is utterly out of the question to make a sun and hang it in the space. But their UFO civilization, with the ultra-high and modern technology, can fully make it possible, I think. In addition, we can think that when the inner part of the Earth was formulated, various parts of the Earth were invaded by the air, and so there could be molded lots of small holes in the Earth. Even though I say the word small, the size of it can be the following. The width of it can be several tens of kilometers, the length of it several hundreds of kilometers, and the height can be several kilometers, etc. Furthermore, it is possible to think that there is the sea and land, like the outer surface on which the residents of the earth live now. Can you nod your head to my explanation up till now? If you run out of the common sense and preoccupied conception, you can be in a positive position with my idea. On this point of view, we can draw a picture showing the inner world of the earth as following. On the page 333 to 335 of this book, that which Olaf Jansen, a Norwegian who really traveled in the inner world of the earth, said, is written. And what is said is that the thickness is about 480 kilometers. In the movie Searching for the Lost World, 잃어버린 세계를 찾아서 in Korean, there is a scene in which three heroes fall into the inner world through the volcano hole. As they fall, The boy asks his uncle what the length of the hole was, and his uncle says that it is nearly several thousand kilometers, or several thousand miles. As a matter of fact, it is nearly 480 kilometers in reality. Different from the surface of the earth, the sea of this inner world of the earth is the one which has the 1/4, and the land is 3/4 of the whole area. Therefore, the surface of the inner world is wider than the sea. Well, let's look at the following picture. This is the picture which Marshall B. Gardner, an American, explained in his book Going into the Inner Part of the Earth in 1920. This is not the exact title of the book. I only write the meaning of the title. It is in the book UFO Hanmando Project, the UFO project of the Korean Peninsula, page 76. The next picture is the one which explains the inner part of the earth in more detail, and it is in the book 실존하는 신비의 지저 문명 텔러스 1, this book, page 97, 텔러스 1. Furthermore, as you can see in the picture above, there are many caves in various areas, and these caves are connected with one another with the underground tunnels like web. Therefore, we can have a question naturally, and the question is what sort of state of the plasma there is. That is, how the plasma exists there. As you can see in the picture above, the underground is not filled with the plasma ore, but it is in the middle of the surface of the earth and of the inner world of the earth. And they are scattered here and there. In this inner part of the earth, there are several races, and among them a race has the height of 3 to 4 meters. And another race is nearly 1.2 meters tall, who are taller than the average people of the earth, but in that place, this height is quite common. It is said that they live for a long time, and a certain person is now 20,000 years old. When we consider the fact that some people live as old as 600 to 800 years, it is supposed that there are many countries there, and so each country has its own civilization and level. I knew that the Aryans have the life expectancy of nearly 700 to 1,000 years, but when I read the sentence that some person is now 20,000 years old, I was greatly surprised. And it is a human affair, not in other planet, but the inner world of our own planet, the Earth. As they say that when the Earth enters the new dimension, they will share all of the ultra-modern technology with the residents of the Earth, we can think that in reality, the Earth can have the highest level civilization in our galaxy in the future. Thanks to the high-level technology, they barred the entrance of the South and North poles with the energy film in order to prevent the people of the Earth from coming to the place where they live. And therefore, even if the scientists take pictures with the satellite, they can take only the pictures of the ice. It is said that the aurora light, which can be seen in the pole areas, is the light leaking from the central sun there. We can find pole crowns in the pole area of the Mars or the Jupiter. The pole crowns look like white crown there. And it is said that all of the planets in the universe are vacant in the inner area of them. In my opinion, the aurora is the light concocted or combined with the two sources of light, that is, the light which comes out of the inner part of the earth, and the light which comes out of the magnetic line that rubs the air. By the way, what is the level of the fifth dimensional civilization? It is said that the fifth dimension is the civilization which the earth has to meet after the year 2012. It is said that when our civilization becomes the fifth dimension, the body of the human beings will become almost a half-transparent one. This sort of person can be seen at the end of the movie Knowing. Know plus ing, knowing. It is said that in the fifth dimensional world, they can make things only by thought. Only by thought? However, it is not a surprising thing, for Jesus Christ had all the people around him eat fish and bread after he transformed several fish and bread into lots of them. Therefore, it is possible to make things by thought only. In reality, it is said that the buildings there are made up of crystal. In other words, they were built with the transparent crystal and other jewels, and they twinkle brilliantly, and therefore they look like the castles or palaces of the fairy tales. All of these buildings are said to have been made by only concentrating thought, and this sort of reality can only be understood when we run off the preoccupied idea. As I said before, there exist lots of vacant holes in the earth, and the most representative one is situated under Mount Shasta, a dead volcano mountain in California state of America, and it is Telos. In the past, there was an empire state called Lemuria in the Pacific Ocean, and this country had a war with the Atlantis Empire, which was situated in the Atlantic Ocean in the about 12,000 years ago. As a result of the war, the two countries were drowned deep into the sea. At that time, many people predicted the coming war, and they took refuge to the underground cave under Mount Shasta in California, and they built a new city, Telos. Anyway, in this city, the residents have developed a quite ultra-modern super science, and as the level of their consciousness has entered the high level of fifth dimension, they made a society which can be called a paradise. Again, let's return to the general shape of the inner world of the earth. It is said that the capital city there is called Shambala, and it is said that most of the UFOs which can be watched in the sky of the earth are the ones that come from the inner world of the earth. And they want to contact the residents of the earth after 2012. Furthermore, there are some persons who visited this world already, and they are Admiral Byrd, who was an American, the father and son of Olaf Jansen, who were the Norwegians, and Lobsang Nampa, who was a monk of the Tibetan temple.